and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. A little different setting today. I wanted to be more towards the light, and I have this beautiful pink roses lights there in the background just to soften the atmosphere, because the topic I want to talk about today is not as easy, although the title, of course, right? It feels so easy. How are we our star? Are we truly our star? The work towards becoming the star. Okay, so where do I begin? There's just so much to share here. So I have been actually tuning into the Emerald Records of Thought, as I've shared with you before. And I've been listening over and over and over again, because even in the whole beginning section, he points out that it's very important to partake in this information and take it, read, whether you're listening or reading, because now we're so modern, right? We're listening to the information just as well as we can read it. To take it in as many times as you want, because the first glance, right, is just happening on the surface. And I'm a very well devoted student. As you know, I'm studying all the time, I'm receiving all the time. Basically, my best friend is spirit, the world of spirit. So for me, there's nothing better than, taking a long walk and just tuning in so deeply and just receiving directly. And all this that I receive, as you know, I share with you the most I can, what spirit tells me to share, pass forward. So it's very important for us to really be honest, to be genuine with the path of what is it, right, to be here? What is it to remember the heritage, the sovereign heritage of our galactic origin and beyond? And I want to share some of the things that I felt were really important in the records, although I do strongly recommend for all of you to study the material yourself. Because for me, I don't know, every time I begin to listen to it, I have tears of remembrance. I shared with you before, there's like this opening, I feel this vastness, like you're stepping into the halls of great initiation, and you can just feel the energy. I've shared with you before that it really depends on the level of awareness as a soul where you are, how much you will receive at different levels. So every time I tune into it, I receive information at a different angle. I hear things I didn't hear before, because that's just how our soul works. It just unveils things for us when it's time to remember and download. And basically, when the system of our body somehow resonates with that. So the body always has to be adapt to the information received. That's very important for us to know. And I've been always sharing with you that the activation and integration journeys are both one. So one of the most fascinating and brilliant things that he also shares there, I believe, in my own opinion, is the workings of the light and dark. And he talks about the whole constitution of the world in which we live in, the world of men. And there's many different worlds, of course, that coexist. And how important it is to become the star that the man truly is, to master ourselves, right, in the shadow. So what I always tell you, so that the mastery of shadow can be applied, right, so that the light can apply itself through the mastery of shadow. So this world is a whole setup, is a framework of mastering duality, stepping into a unified polarity, which I call the illumined union. And this is just such a journey, it's really fascinating the way it will unfold in our life. But it is of utmost importance to understand that it's not an easy journey, right? So I was thinking today how, in the recording, it's also talked about that the man, his journey here is a mountain. And when we talk about our challenges, we usually use the word to surmount a challenge, right? There's a whole connotation there of the word to surmount something. So the spiritual mountain of our devotion, it's not a devotion to guru or an ideology. This is devotion to the self, to the path of light that is sovereign, that is the sacred word of truth. So I've been deepening this path in years. Every time I go through a different stage in a different setup. As you well know, there are cycles of light and there are cycles of shadow we must go through. And these are vitally important. So I received guidance on a lot of information channel today that in the Patreon content at the advanced level next month in February, I'm going to do a mini course. This is what I do at that level because I have 3 different levels of guidance system there. I will do a course on shadow and light cycles and the importance of understanding how we integrate. Because a lot of the times there will be references such as we are going through different transits of collective energies or astrological unfoldings, and the thing is we have to understand how do we apply ourselves there as the initiative light, not just someone who perceives these cycles as destined and that's how it should be, and then there's it's like a stigma you put on yourself if you're going through a certain transit, but there's a world of light that is an affinity to light they have shared with me today. The words that Spirit has used, they said that nothing is predetermined. There's only the affinity to light through light from within. So, when you're taking in these concepts held at a higher level, you have to have a very pure reflective mind and a state of yogic being, right? It demands of us to kind of have that sort of focus, which many people don't like to hear the words determination, focus, perseverance, things that have a more serious connotation, because nowadays everything feels like it's just easy, it's reachable, you take it, you download it, it's instant, easy access. But the path of true spiritual mountain to uncover and embody the star within as man is, as all is, but it has to go through certain turmoil in order to become that in this world in particular. That was the design for this world. So many people don't like to hear these words, So the word devotion is a soft approach. It's a soft narrative that somehow it loosens up the idea that we still have a lot of imprinting and fear around words like focus, because we think it's something structured and that we're being pressed to achieve something. But this is nothing of that sort. This is simply a knowledge that spiritual attainment, once that becomes your utmost desire, it's not something that you will access overnight. And I feel and I still see a lot of misconception out there, especially in our easy accessible global network informational databases online, and everything that's now become so virtualized and in many cases simplified. Um, it's kind of sometimes disrupts the flow of how light truly wants to come through us and be born naturally. Because it's almost like if you have a conversation with someone, many times we want to impart our wisdom onto someone else, but in truth it's not what really uncovers the star within themselves. It's the toiling, it's the making, it's the shaping of the diamond that then eventually unravels and veils its total perfection and beauty. So there's so many stages of this, and there will be stages that will feel more arduous, difficult, and challenging because of that. But just like Todd says in his own scriptures and the passing of that information forward, he's saying there will be those who will pose as men of the light, but they will not be men of the light. They will be somehow, it's like mirages, right? There will be something superimposed upon what's real. They say, it is said that they will always present the path which is simple and easy, so something that you can easily access, but it's not the path of truth. It's not the path towards the light. Because nowadays, so many times I share with you, the words that have spiritual meaning, that have the meaning of our core essence, have been so trivialized, have been used so loosely, and it's all, for me, it's like just it makes no sense sometimes when you see that. So in my own nature, I'm kind of like a hermit. I love to be in the background. I just love to do my inner work and share and do my input as much as I'm guided. And I feel it can, strengthen our network of those of you who truly feel called to be, the master of your own sovereign ascension process. But to know that this is not something that, just because someone will present in an easy matter, which will feel, oh, that's easier for me, is not necessarily the path that will eventually lead you to your star, to shining bright. Because so many times we say the words, we are star, we're made of stardust, we are just the galaxy. That greatness is imbued, it's embedded in every facet of creation of life. It is natural in the understanding of unity consciousness. However, in our development of that, which is man becoming man in flesh, man self-aware, and eventually man self-realized, which leads to the man in Christ, born in Christ's light, and eventually the man becomes its own creator being, creator God in its essence, and then the continuation of life still continues. So just like thought describes beings who are masters of creation cycles, and they're governing these cycles. So he says there's these 7 principles of these cycles, and each of these cycles, like how I'm shown, has to unfold just perfectly. So if you look at the nature of creation, and it's absolute, right? The way spirit shows it to me, it's like that of the highest order, how we perceive it, right? And even that is always growing, it's always expanding, it's learning new knowledge. Is also, in a way, it needs that of the below, right? Of the lesser cycles, which it's just a name we use, right? It's the way we can somehow even imagine it. So these are just words, don't fall for them, okay? But this is needed. So imagine that which is the below serves the above to also expand. So when the above expands, the cycles expand, which also directly influences the cycles of the below, which are more minute cycles or tinier cycles that are embraced within a much vaster cycles of life, and how decisions and overseeing processes of creation go. So when I share with you the guidance I receive from the light family, the Elohim, who are these watchers, who are the rulers or the governing forces of these creation principles, this is received in utmost reverence, and because so much time in my own life is spent in silence. And silence, right, in many ways we want to control, we don't want that silence, and we want to talk in silence. So even thought is saying, kind of like eradicate the desire to always speak, to always make something, it's like to speak in silence, which actually leads towards unraveling of greater and greater truths of the cosmos, or the nature of our creation essence. So I think it's beautiful the way he presents this growth as in these 3 layers, or these 3 principles, 3 natures. First is the nature of man, second is the nature of liberation, and the third we know is the great Godhead or divinity, source, whatever you call it. So that all of these basically are held together as one. So even that, like we look at the nature of certain beings, we say these are of all beings, they have simply refined the nature, their state to a degree, so they can be a star. They have transcended, they have transpired through a certain configuration they once participated with, they played in that playground, they went on to the next stage of life, and from this stage they're kind of like passing on, and or sometimes just holding up the form or the status quo that is here at that level. But even their level with this, when this which is felt like it's below, it expands also that which is above, and it's all kind of growing and at the same time expanding. So that's how spirit is showing it to me. And because of that, it is so important to not perceive the human life, or life in general, life on this planet, as minute, not important, rendered to less, and say, well, this is just one of the worlds, right? It is impactful in many times in the negative way, because darkness is held still with such strong hold. And I know there's people who say, well, light is getting stronger. Yes, it is. And certain individuals who already light is getting stronger. But in general, it requires a lot of effort, a lot of spiritual attainment to really increase that inner light. Not that which we perceive is light, like, so we're not here to simply, we come in this world and just to be entertained, just to have fun, make something of it or not. This is truly a world where so much can be learned through this self-awareness and self-application. And you can even see it in my own way when I started going much deeper into this journey, sharing more, refined things. It's like people just go. And it's like where majority of the people is like they're still trying to balance themselves and learning about who they are. And yet there's many stepping stones that lead to next unveilings and next unfolding journey of what makes us here, being capable of achieving as human beings. So the work that Thoth talks about is that sacred knowledge that is also the knowing of the masters. And although it has been hidden in a way that it was supposed to be a mystery, and mystery is only knowledge not yet understood, was for the reason that it wouldn't just be accessible to, just any random person who is not ready or who is vile in any way, or could use that for the manifestation and destruction, which was used in many ages before. As you know, it's eventually got scales to tip in our ancient days of Atlantis. So with all of that, there there were developed different methodologies and symbology, to preserve this as ancient and sacred. And what really tips me off sometimes is when I see that things just aren't seen as sacred anymore. Even with nowadays, as you know, everyone is passing different readings online, and I'm not against anything. As you know, I just observe life as in its evolutionary stages as they present themselves here on Earth. I'm just a watcher at that degree, of that extent. But I'm seeing this trend that what used to be sacred in the ancient times, there had to be so much ritual and so many passings made before someone could actually go into that state, when the channeling of information and the passing on was really held in the sacred space. And nowadays, what is shared is often not sacred because of the nature of the way it comes. Just because you put a candle there, or you put some of the things that you call there's your sacred items in your sacred space, does not necessarily for us, it means that now what we're going to share and pass on, like putting it on into the entire world, it will now be at this highest spirit level. It will be received that way because there's just so many filters there as well, because of the universal law we're not seeing there. And one of the things that they're showing me is, when there's an aware person, let's say they're watching information and they're absorbing something and they're resonating with something, they will know exactly how and when to apply something, because they know themselves. Their utmost awareness of themselves, where they're currently, even if they still have wounds or things they're kind of working on, they will know, because they will feel, they will be completely authentic within themselves. They won't have blind spots anymore. And yet, if there's a person unaware and they're watching and they're tuning in, the dangerous thing is that they can apply something to themselves where they're not there. So that kind of serves as a filter for not seeing where they truly are and the work they truly should be doing to work towards that second circle, which is liberation. And liberation leads to that which is truly physical ascension. So like Thoth describes his first journey into that liberation through the journey of darkness. It's like he just bursted through this plane, and he passed through different planes, and he saw different things and structures, and he even saw what, with those words, if I can translate it, it was like seeing different star beings who were self-aware, and they used themselves to work with the element of ether. He just saw how they created from that state. They could just instantly create something of it because they came to that level of awareness. So he was just in that state of observing because he broke free and broke through just this plane, the kind of puts this lockdown energy on many souls who have been recycling in this realm for eons of time, not knowing there's anything else that even exists. So the state of liberation, and why it can only be achieved through spiritual dedication and self-awareness, presence with yourself, self-observation, even how's it called, when you're really in that state of what's it called, when you're in that state, what are they calling it, oh, the incubation. Yeah, when they put someone in the incubation phase, that's also very important, because at certain stages of your journey you're going to have to go in that bubble to kind of work in that certain chemical component where you are now before you pass on to the next level, next stage. And you're gonna sometimes need sterile conditions. That doesn't mean that you're in denial, but you're consciously putting yourself in that state. So for us to really be aware where we are, to truly know that we are spiritual aspirants, not just simply wishy-washy people who don't even have any high reverence or standards, it just keeps tying us to be bound to this earthly realm. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the earthly realm. It's the way life is experienced through bondage, through separation, and immense fears that are often not just internal fears, but many of these fears are kind of like companions made in association with the beings of the underworld that people in all their lost of knowledge are kind of calling for. They're calling from down below, and how many masters have already called that phenomena, which is still happening day to day. And with our closed or veiled eyes, we can't see. But the first step is the mastering of ourselves through darkness, and that is what opens this next door, the door of liberation. So for us to truly be a star, what does that mean, right? It's easy to just play a star. Now everyone can be a star on YouTube, everyone can have their channel, but this is not what I'm talking about. As he said also in the tablets, is that in these high order of beings, all they care about is soul evolution, nothing else. They only care about the realm of the soul. The soul grows just as well in the physical realm or any realm. I'm not talking about just the physical realm we know here as Earth, but where it is in experience of life through different realms of creation or different realms of being in existence. But the soul also grows in the inner world, so the inner planes, what we call, the passing, when the soul passes. However, um, you know, there's a fine line between knowing that we are a part of this and being consciously participant with that learning, or kind of completely forgetting our nature and thinking, okay, when I die, I'm going to go into that and that will change. It doesn't change. So everything we somehow, the awareness we have now, it carries over the same way the fears and the projections will also carry over. So that's why I'm saying the work we're doing now, the attainments we're doing, is so important. It's so vital that I don't believe many people realize. Nowadays, a lot of people have become sort of the manifestations of the light that is false light, and not always in the way that is meant to be destructive, but just like self-sabotaging and blinding, because you see so much online now is focused on how to create money, how to create wealth. Whenever I tune into something, when someone first starts talking about how you will create money and this for yourself, I'm like, oh no, I'm not against things like that. I still use money as well in order to be even in the physical, but I don't talk about it. I don't see that as something that is so necessary for us to put in our workings of light, to discuss this, that almost like it's the most important thing in our lives. It's like the focus of the true child of light, the one who truly wants to become starborn as they are, has to be on that which is essence. And when our focus is not on essence, we all have the tendency to lose sight on that which is truly important. This is just like a little overview. I don't want to be too too intense with all of this, but I feel nowadays it's so easy to be misled. In the ancient times, they had a lot of mystery schools, and it was more like you were either a part of that or you were completely not a part of that world. Nowadays, anyone can have access to any sort of information, and yet even that in itself has layers of veils. That which we call the safety net, the way true information is protected, it's almost like it's sealed, and I call this the seals of creation. It is the seals in its divine purity that will be unlocked at the essence level when you, as an aspirant, you will have a certain resonance, that matches that. So like I told you, right, you can listen or read to something and you will be only able to attain that level of that, because knowledge is also multidimensional. It exists on many levels. So you have a book, looks like physical book with physical information, but beings in more advanced levels of their spiritual mastery, they will fine tune into the essence of many, many different scopes of things that are also part of that, which makes it even more interesting when we go into the non-sensory world of perception, which is the world of essence. And I've talked about this in the previous video if you haven't seen that one. So why this is so important is because people believe they will grow without doing anything to tending to their garden, which they're growing in. The garden is the garden of the soul. The Garden of Eden is the garden of your soul. in whatever kind of archetypes and whatever was used as stories, the stories of the collective, the stories of civilizations are only like anecdotes, right? To show us how the man can fall, how the nature of darkness can enslave, can bind, can distort reality. That the true nature of refinement we're doing here is that of soul, the world of soul. In many cases, we mistaken that which we believe is the world of light with truly what is the essence of soul. And there's many kind of barriers that are there. So I really believe that which Thought has addressed is so important when he says there's many here posing as children of light, but they're not, because they're passing on that which is the truth, which is your journey towards that, as something that is easily accessible. And nowadays we see so much of that, right? Nothing is seen as a journey anymore. You do a weekend course and you're certified in this and that, and you do that and you have this mastery degree or diploma. And or you have a reading with someone, they tell you about your spiritual gifts or something, and then you already have them because someone told you about this. For me, when I see this, it's like sacredness has been lost. And although people are saying this is the new age of the light, it's only in its inkling stages of the seeds, and you are fully aware of that when you just observe. When you're an observer, when you observe from within, you feel an essence, and then you, from your essence, you can expand, right? So just like you become liberated of the world of the scene, the material, like Thought explains when he first bursted out and he was beginning his ascension sojourn, right? It's like you have that overall expanded vision. So you can achieve that vision when you're still in the physical, when you incarnate like this. But you have to work for it. And this is that, the surmounting of the many mountains in our existence, the many paths that lead towards that path of liberation, which is that world that unifies the man and the divine as liberation. So, yeah, to soften this a bit, I made these drawings. I want to share these two drawings with you. One is from a little while ago, and one is just from today, fresh from the oven, because I kept seeing the star. And I want to share with you, before I show you these sketches, they gave me a beautiful, simple exercise which you can do to clarify your vision, so that more and more you will know the right steps to take, what is the right thing for you to do, how to refine your energies, how to work with the true light substance, right? Not the light that is somehow light that blinds, right? And if it blinds, it also binds. And it's not truly the light of truth. For me, I always talk about the truth and the light of illumination. For me, there is no other light. That's the absolute. And it's also what the Christ has been speaking about, right? In his own sharings. So the first one I made was a while back, and it sort of also reflects my Ascension illumination meditation, which walks you through different stages of the tunnel when you're passing, right? When you're walking as a true aspirant of the truth, leading yourself towards that ultimate fulfillment, which is illumination. And I know so many people now are ready, but even if you're ready, right, it takes, like I said, tolling, right? It's like the work of that refinement, of putting a hammer on a nail, right? Something like that. So the first one was, and reflects that meditation beautifully. It's on my download page, as well as it's also shared on my Patreon page. And it's like this, right? So you can see the spiritual mountain, the rays of the violet fire, the inner core, and then you have these three different levels, right? The inner core, then you have the tunnel of light, then it's the outward, the appearance, the physical aspect of the mountain, and then the path of life force mastery here that leads towards this. So in meditation that I received, Illumined Ascension meditation, is very intense. If you want to get that and you can use it, it's not a one-time meditation usage. It's truly something that can deepen your awareness. So anytime you listen to knowledge which is sacred, not something that is of passing nature, something that you resonate in a moment in order to lift you and take you to a certain frequency level where you feel you somehow need to be, so you can, that's okay, but those are triggers. It's not the same as true sparks of illumination that somehow they have a totally different effect. They have that all-encompassing resurgence of light within you when you can truly rise in your spiritual fire. So the second one is that when I talk about it, we truly are a lumen star, is this one. So this is we each have our own spiritual mountain, right? And this mountain already, this is the core. This is the eternal presence. And it has these levels and layers. And here at the top is our star. And it's kind of like, if you imagine it going like this, it's an arduous journey. You know, if you will listen to the Emerald Tablets, you will get a bigger picture. And again, really, really, I advise you deeply listen to what's shared. Don't just go for the words. Tune into. I usually, when I listen to sacred information like that, I start seeing visions, or I have like my own memory. It's like spin-offs of energy, like spirals going off into the uncharted territory when I get new ideas and inspirations that are subsequent to that. They're kind of like following from that. So that's what the original, the primordial, the ancient knowledge, the awareness does. That's the state it kind of moves us into. So this is the star, right? And it's always beaming, it's always there. But in our journey, right? This journey is the walk towards this mountain of illumination. It's like the mountain of illumination, right? Mount Star. And it's sort of like, you see, there's this violet. This, like, violet is always this essence of spirituality, and spiritual understanding, and the way it's sort of like descending and it's moving into the core, and it's from this core deep within the halls, the darkness, right? That's where the light grows most. And so that eventually this light at the top becomes this light at the bottom. The light, the shadow, right? They're both birthing points for that which is primordial in nature, and that which therefore expands creation and its making. So there's a whole lot of light. As you can see, this here are the flames. These are the sacred fire flames. So the more you go upwards, the more you rise your spiritual flame. So you're rising your spiritual power. Spiritual power is not the power of dominion. It's not a power of manipulation. As you know, spiritual power is your own power. And it's born from this journey of the experience. So when you allow yourself to breathe in your experience, to have an actual experience, to walk the mountain, not just standing there and waiting things to come to you, but you doing the work. And that work is not, like I said, put the hammer and the nail, is not physical work, but it's the work of your light in the physical. So therefore, it is physical in its nature, just as well as it's spiritual. But these levels in between, the way we do this is also, as you know, it's also the realm of the mind, right? The mental, which is the connective force. It's kind of like the narrative of the design, the way we do it, the way we approach things. And that's how our mind becomes more and more illumined and one with the great imagination of the divine. So I'm going to show you this here. So there's a lot of pink here as this reflection of love, and there's this violet, this transformative essence leading more and more into the upper realm. So this is like the star here. Our star is eternal. It's always biting in these, what we call the celestial or the crystalline realms. Doesn't matter. But it is not something that maybe you have a glimpse of, a moment of, and it's just there, and you believe, oh, I've reached it, right? I've reached my state. And as long as you are not fully liberated, which means, you know, in the ancient times, they always, before you did a ceremony ritual, they always advised to not eat food for 3 days or drink, or I don't know how many nights, something like that. Or they went into the deserts or to the mountaintops and they sort of did the whole spiritual purging. So it's not like now you can't eat food, but that you eliminate the idea that you must, which binds you. Whenever there's a must, you're bound, you're kind of like, you have this contract, right? Either with is something within yourself, with patterns, with people, places, certain energies, right? And it feels oppressive because it binds you to something. In another way, when you do something simply because, you know, you feel that's sustaining you in the moment and it's always just bringing forth the response in each moment, that's a totally different thing. So the meditation, yeah, sorry, I was kind of going for that first, and then I started describing something else. Sometimes what I do, spirit kind of leads you, and then I guess I needed to show the sketch first. going to show it again. So they gave me this very simple meditation, which is when you want to work with a higher refined sense of yourself and your inner star. It's just like, right, I always sit in the lotic, I want to say lotic position. It's yogic, but also lotus, so logic, which is interesting, right? Because the word logos is the word of that, the truth becoming law, becoming principle. So you are in your principal position when you are in your yogic lotus position. So just, I won't do the whole life force breathing exercises. Everything about this is not something you can do or teach in one instant. That's why I have a whole Tantrika life force mastery course on my page you can get. But basically, when you do all of that, right, you can start by really taking in all of your energy, place it here. You know, there's even one of the exercises in the Emerald tablets when thought says that you put a picture in your mind and then really focus upon that. So what they gave me for this particular reason, to know of your it's like what makes you starborn, to know your star at the essence level. Just place a star here, right? That's why I put this little marker here today again after a long time. It was been a while, truly. So just placing that star, right? And see that star starting to spin. And then what you would do is you can just imagine the color of the star reaching all these higher states. So you can see the star is silver and then of gold, and then they kind of merges together and becomes platinum. And then you can see rose gold. That's also very high essence, right? No wonder nowadays we have this color, rose gold. It's entering our field of awareness because it is a higher essence. It's very divine, feminine color. So just feel that and feel all of these components and all these elements, right? Why metals were, as you know, so important in the ancient days, not just because of their physical components and what you could do with them, but basically because of their, sorry, their spiritually conductive natures. Okay, they were seen as alchemical in nature. So when you do that, you're also bringing an alchemical component with the colors. So I guess I kicked the whole computer thingy, right? To show off the spin. I usually don't do that, so I'm very sorry. But yeah, and then you just see that star spinning and gaining momentum. And then you just allow that star to unfold an energy pattern or something within you that you're giving your attention to, whether it's an image you have in mind, whether it's like, I'm not talking about it again, we're not talking about manifestation here. I want this, so I'm going to do this exercise to manifest this. If you think that, you've totally missed the point of my video. It's not about this, but it's an image of something that reminds you either of that core essence, something that's very strongly like a symbol for you, maybe something that represents illumination for you, maybe it's just a color, but something that brings you that essence of bliss, that nirvana like state, right? So then just feel that star unfolding in that picture, in that image. And then maybe each time when you do that, the feeling of that essence will expand and will grow from you, from within you. And then what you can do is, just like we have in this picture, you can see yourself descending that and bringing down and bringing down. It's like descending, it's descending, and it's moving in your core. And when you've done this work, sorry, it just moves and it becomes the enhanced, expanded light, right? And it's just lit. It's a glow. Okay. So it was just a very simple sharing I really felt called to bring after I did the whole working with the unseen video. That is, again, such a wide topic because there's many things in the unseen, right? There's the shadow, there's the light, that's all of it. But I truly highly recommend you to go try the whole Emerald Records thing. The whole thing is shared on YouTube as different parts and a whole compilation file. That's a whole big version. I think it's around 2-3 hours long. It's really not that long, but it's not about that, you know. It's like when you are devoted to this path, nothing else will be more important, you know. I'm like the happiest kid when I can just go and require new new enhancements in my being. And sometimes you get nothing because it's like it's not important, or your energy isn't there, or it's just the way life is. This is something we can't control. So this is not about manifesting something. This is about being so devoted to this journey that with all of your heart and with every step of the way you trust that you are walking this path, that the path basically walks itself through you. You are the one you're just opening gateways with each of the initiations you walk through, your devotions, your aspirations. So I will see you on the other side. I hope this was enjoyable. I know maybe a more intense topic, but it's very important. That's why it is as it is. Don't think that all that is intense is somehow bad, or just because it feels too strong, don't overwhelm yourself. But recognize within yourself that part of you, the voice that feels it's being called. It's being called by the upsurgence of your spiritual fire, the calling of your soul, that which truly guides you to the union through that liberation. So, as always, so much love, wisdom, and power. And I'm looking forward to what will be that course on light and shadow cycles on Patreon. And I think that's it. So, enjoy. Have a beautiful one.